Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We are excited to have you with us. My name is Jennifer Metz, and I am the Marketing Manager for Early Childhood Titles here at Brooks Publishing. We are honored to have with us today Dr. Elena Soukakou, the developer of the Inclusive Classroom Profile, and Dr. Tracy West, investigator at the Frank Porter Graham Institute at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. You will be muted for today's webinar. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box and we will take them after today's presentation. For best audio, please turn off any other programs you may have running. You can find other housekeeping tips in the handout section of the webinar. Now, I would like to introduce our speakers, Dr. Elena Soukakou and Dr. Tracy West. Dr. Soukakou is a senior lecturer in the School of Education at Roehampton University in London. Dr. Soukakou earned her doctoral degree in education from Oxford University. She has worked as an early childhood special education teacher and as an early intervention specialist, researcher, and consultant for early childhood inclusion and special education in the United States, United Kingdom, and her home country of Greece. Dr. Tracy West is an investigator at Frank Porter Graham Child Development Institute at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Her research and professional interests focus on the areas of inclusion, early childhood, and professional development. She is principal investigator for supporting change and reform in pre-service teaching in North Carolina, a project partnering with community college faculty in North Carolina to enhance their program of studies in order to better prepare early childhood professionals to work with children with disabilities, as well as those who are culturally and linguistically diverse. Now it is my pleasure to turn the presentation over to Dr. Elena Soukakou.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, and welcome everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar. I am Elena Soukakou, the author of the Inclusive Classroom Profile, and I'm very excited to see the ICP finally published after a long journey of studies and revision, because this means that it can now be accessible for people to use to support their needs. I also want to thank Jennifer and Brooks all together for their excellent work in publishing the manual and the instrument. And Jennifer, thank you for your continuous efforts to inform people about it. I would like to find out a bit more about who's with us this afternoon. And before we do that, let me briefly take you through the structure of this webinar. So the purpose of this webinar is to introduce participants to the Inclusive Classroom Profile and how it can be used. In the first part, which will last about 30 minutes, I will present an overview of the ICP tool, and my colleague, Dr. Tracy West, will also join me to talk to you briefly about the ICP training program. At the end of this presentation, we will take questions, and we really look forward to any comments you would like to discuss together. I have to say this is the first time I'm doing a webinar from overseas, not a webinar, but from overseas. I'm currently in my office at the University of Roehampton in London, United Kingdom, after a stormy day, and I'm therefore very grateful that technology can bring us so close so easily. Okay, Jennifer, shall we find out who's here with us this afternoon?
Sounds great. Oh, we have some voting. All right, we're almost there. All right. All right, that's what we have so far.
Okay.
So it looks like we have a lot of administrators.
And a lot of other. I wonder if
Yes.
some of you are PD providers or coaches. There are a lot of.
Yeah, I can definitely, I'll make another poll throughout your presentation.
Wonderful. It is great to have a diverse audience, and the ICP is designed to be used by different professionals with a variety of interests and expertise. So again, welcome everyone, and we look forward to your input at the end of the presentation. Let's get started. The Inclusive Classroom Profile was developed 10 years ago with the aim to help us identify and improve the quality of inclusion in early childhood programs. But what does that involve? Here you can see a joint position statement by the Division of Early Childhood of the Council for Exceptional Children and the National Association for the Education of Young Children, which I am sharing because it is an important step towards developing a shared understanding of what we mean by inclusive practice. As you can see, the term practices is highlighted because now more than ever, an essential element of including children with special needs in early childhood programs are the teaching practices that we implement in the classroom on a daily basis to support their needs. We also now know a lot more about which classroom practices are effective in supporting the development and learning of preschool children with disabilities in inclusive classrooms. The National Professional Development Center on Inclusion at Frank Porter Graham, University of North Carolina, recently published an excellent summary of research synthesis points based on international literature on interventions and instructional strategies that have been shown to be effective in supporting various areas of need for children with disabilities. So we know more about how to support young children with disabilities in early childhood classrooms. But how do we know how well we are implementing inclusive practices in our classrooms? This is a question that I've been asking for a long time and inspired me to develop the ICP. In other words, how do we know if we're practicing high-quality inclusion? So far, we have at our availability recommended standards such as the DEC recommended practices, an excellent resource and system for guiding our practice based on research and the wisdom of our professional practice. We also use global program quality measures such as the Early Childhood Environment Rating Scales, which comprehensively assess the quality of the general early childhood provision. However, in order to assess the quality of those practices that might be necessary for meeting the needs of children with disabilities, we need measures that are sensitive enough to identify those type of practices. Current program quality measures were not designed specifically to measure the quality of inclusive practices, and therefore a growing concern about the suitability of many current measures for assessing the quality of inclusion is that young children with disabilities can experience low quality in classrooms that are otherwise rated as being of high quality if we don't use measures that are sensitive and specialized enough to capture those practices. To respond to this need, the ICP was designed to complement existing classroom quality measures and standards by focusing on classroom-level practices that support the individual needs of children with disabilities. In the ICP, inclusive practices are practices that support children's individualized needs while at the same time promote active participation in the group through adjustments and adaptations that differ from child to child. What type of tool is the ICP? The ICP is a structured observational tool that rates practices on a 1 to 7-point rating scale, with 1 reflecting the lowest quality level and 7 describing practices at the highest quality level. And it includes 12 inclusive practices that form the 12 ICP items. Here you can see the format of the rating scale for one of the ICP items. The ICP uses a similar scale and format with the Eckers measures. That is, within each of the 12 items or areas of inclusive practice, a set of quality indicators describe specific practices that can be reliably assessed through observation. For example, item 1 of the ICP that you can see on your screen looks at adaptations of the classroom space, materials, and equipment. With this item, you can assess the extent to which the space, materials, and equipment are accessible to children, the extent to which teachers and adults in the room monitor how children use materials in ways appropriate for the activities they choose, and how children are supported in using materials through specific scaffolding strategies. This item also looks at how adults not only set up a classroom before the day begins, but also how they dynamically and intentionally organize the space, materials, and equipment throughout the day to support children's individual needs as well as their social experience. For example, at the 7 level, a teacher observing a child with a physical disability trying to walk across a room using her walker might intentionally clear the way from toys to encourage this child's independent walking. Or a teacher observing a child with attention difficulty being distracted by the art materials that are placed on his activity table might reorganize the materials to minimize distraction or place them in a way so that he can more easily perform the steps involved in his activity. For each of the 12 ICP items, a different page provides a set of criteria for rating the quality indicators with specific examples and guidelines for scoring the quality of observed practices. Now let's take a look at how the ICP can be used. The ICP has 3 uses. As a research tool, it can be used by researchers to assess the quality in early childhood inclusive programs, to compare quality across different settings, or to investigate the relationship between the quality of inclusive classroom practices and children's developmental progress. In other words, does participating in a high-quality inclusive classroom help a child make greater progress towards his individualized goals? As a classroom quality assessment tool, it can be used as a standalone tool to measure quality or to complement other early childhood global program quality measures. Well, the ultimate purpose of any assessment is to help us improve our practice. And therefore, as a quality improvement tool, the ICP can be used to inform professional development and quality improvement efforts by linking assessment information with decisions about how to improve the practices we implement daily in the classroom. Here you can take a closer look at the 12 ICP items. Take a second to read through them. These 12 items reflect 12 areas of inclusive practice that support important goals for children with disabilities and their families. These goals are embedded across different practices. For example, take a look at the second item. Item 2, Adult Involvement in Peer Interaction, focuses on teaching practices that support children's interactions and friendships with other children. This important aspect of children's social development is also addressed across many other items. For example, under Item 1, Adaptation of Space, Materials, and Equipment, you'll find an indicator that assesses the extent to which adults reorganize the space, materials, and equipment to support children's social experience, to encourage and support children's social experience. Adults' Guidance of Children's Free Choice Activities and Play, Item 3 of the ICP, also look at the extent to which during free choice time, adults set up activities, plan for activities, encourage, facilitate, and sustain not just children's individual play, but also social play. And also, conflict resolution is another item that includes practices for supporting peer interaction. And Item 7, Support for Communication, includes a set of indicators that look at social communication and the extent to which, with our practices, we support children's in problem solving together, the extent to which teaching practices support children in understanding each other, the use of, for example, alternative communication systems such as signing and visual support. Okay. At this stage, I wanted to say that the ICP items were developed through years of empirical study, as well as review of the international literature and inclusive practices that have the strongest research support. The development of the ICP began back in 2003 when I was based at Oxford University in the UK. But measure development was continuously informed by research on preschool inclusion, most of which comes from the United States. I myself am a trained special education needs teacher trained in the United States at Columbia University and worked for years in New York City as a special education teacher and an itinerant teacher. During the ICP development process, resources such as the DEC recommended practices, research reviews of early childhood interventions and teaching approaches, current program quality measures, local and state quality rating and improvement systems were all reviewed and served as a roadmap for developing the ICP tool. Okay, so let's go back on how one can use the ICP. When administering the ICP in a classroom, we observe all children with identified special educational needs, but always in the context of their classroom activities and social interactions with other adults and peers. We also observe teachers, co-teachers, specialists, therapists, anyone who is in the room on the day of the assessment who is working with the children and who might be influencing children's experience. An ICP assessment typically takes two and a half to 3 hours to conduct. Assessment information is gathered through observation for the vast majority of the items, and a few indicators are assessed through a brief teacher interview and documentation review. Within each of the 12 items, next to each quality indicator, there is a symbol to guide the user if they need to rate the indicator based on observation, interview, or review of documents. Okay, I hope you found the information on how the ICP can be used useful. Let me tell you a couple of words about research on the ICP. Research so far has focused on assessing its psychometric properties, that is, the extent to which the ICP items actually measure the concepts that they were designed to measure, and the extent to which users can administer the tool consistently with the administration and scoring guidelines. In measurement language, studies looked at properties such as construct and discriminant validity, consistency, inter-rater agreement, and the factor structure of the scale. 2 large-scale studies, one in the United Kingdom and one in the US, have piloted the tool so far to assess its psychometric properties, with good results for the tool's reliability and validity. The results have been published, and you can find information at the end of this presentation on the resource slides. One study has explored the use of the ICP as a quality improvement tool, and one more study on the ICP training program is currently underway. Who can use the ICP? The ICP can be used by many different professionals, including teachers, program administrators, researchers, professional development providers, early childhood specialists, local and state assessors. Okay, this is the end of this overview, and I look forward to your questions. Tracy, would you like to say a few words on the ICP training program?
That would be great. Thanks, Elena. I did want to take the opportunity. This is Tracy, and I was fortunate to work with Elena on one of her validity studies and then to be trained by her as a trainer on the ICP. And we wanted to mention that we do have several training options at the Frankfurter Grandchild Development Institute that Elena has provided the protocol for. And one is an overview, a half day where you learn about the items, administration and scoring, and then there's a 5-day option for reliability training where you have the overview and then 4 very full days of classroom observations and debriefings in the afternoon. And if any of you are interested, there is a link on the next slide that will take you to the training program. Thanks. Anything else, Elena?
I think we're ready to take questions. I think people might already have questions about the training and about the use of the ICP, and I think we can listen to their questions.
Hi, Elena. It's Jen again. So if you go to the next slide for me, please.
Mm-hmm.
So there was the training program that Tracy discussed. If you are looking for more information on the ICP training program, you can go, thanks, sorry about that. You can go to the Frank Porter Graham Child Development Institute at the University of North Carolina. They have the information there where you are able to sign up. Again, it's the best way to administer the ICP correctly. And then where can you buy the ICP? So the Inclusive Classroom Profile is available through Brooks Publishing. So it comes as a manual with forms, and then we have it as a set that would include the ICP manual and one package of forms. Again, you can order or find additional information at brookspublishing.com/ICP. So now there are a few questions for you, Dr. Soukakou. So what I'm going to start with is the ICP aligned with the DEC recommended practices?
Yes. The DEC practices and the ICP share many common dimensions, and we've been looking closely at the alignment between the two. The DEC practices focus on some areas that extend beyond the ICP, because the ICP focuses mainly on classroom level practices. Mm-hmm. So practices that relate to adaptations of the environment, practices that relate to teaching practices, embedded strategies, interventions to support children's engagement in activities, transitions between activities, and strategies to support various goals, developmental goals for children, like supporting communication, peer interactions, and language development, social experience, are all very aligned with the DEC recommended practices, and they were informed by the work that led to the development of the DEC practices. The ICP focuses on classroom level practices and will not cover areas that the DEC practices do, such as, for example, like professional development, or like professional development of staff.
Oh, okay.
Another area as well that they're very aligned is family-school relationships and monitoring children's progress.
Okay. Thank you very much for that answer. And then I know that you had mentioned, we know that the ICP can be used as a quality instrument measurement, but can you also use the ICP as a self-assessment? Would it work for that?
We think it would. However, we haven't yet, the studies that we've conducted so far have assessed the use of the tool as a quality assessment tool by an external observer.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what we've assessed so far. But I think that with some, perhaps like adaptation, it could be used as a self-assessment tool.
Okay. And then how many children with disabilities should be present in the classroom when you're administering the ICP?
There isn't a particular number, because inclusive classrooms, as you know, like they include children, from one child with an identified disability to, classrooms that welcome, like, where 50% are children with identified disabilities. So it can be used with a large group of children with disabilities, and and users are trained through our training program how to observe and rate items when there's smaller versus larger groups.
Okay, great. And then there's just a few more questions. Um,
Sure.
so I know you mentioned that this can work with the ECHRS 3. So someone said that, their program, they're currently using the ECHRS 3. So how exactly does the ICP fit in?
Well, first of all, the ICP can be used alongside ECHRS-Z. You would need two different assessors,
Mm-hmm.
one that would need to conduct the ECHRS 3 and one that would need to conduct the ICP, so that the person who's using the ICP focuses on the group of children with identified disabilities. But the tools really complement each other, because one of the major revisions of the ECHRS 3 is that actually it does not have anymore any of the quality indicators it used to have that measured practices related to children with special needs. So
So the ICP is fitting
the
that.
previous version, yeah, so the ICP is hopefully filling this gap, and then it could complement the assessment of the general early childhood provision.
Okay, and then how long does the ICP take to observe? How long should you observe with the ICP, and then how long would it take for scoring?
Well, to observe, we recommend 2.5 to 3 hours,
Okay.
and that is long enough to be able to observe like a wide range of activities, including like indoor play, outdoor activities, and transitions between different like activities and routines. So 2.5 to 3 hours, and the interview and documentation review usually take 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
15 to 20 minutes, and then scoring the ICP, it depends on how familiar people are, but usually we expect that after training, another 20 minutes would be needed for people to just look at the 12 items and score them.
Great.
Some people do it faster than others.
And then I have one more question, unless we're getting any more in our chat. I apologize. One sec. So again, so you mentioned I'm sorry, can you repeat how long will the interview take?
Interview about 20 minutes.
Okay. We actually already answered this last question that I had. So are there any other questions that we have, or anything else that you would like to mention about the ICP? Like, would you like to go in a little? I know again that you've been developing an inclusive classroom profile for a while. Some of the attendees here I know have used the previous, like the version that was under research. So actually, could you expand on what are some of the new things that you added to the ICP? What are some of the differences from your research version? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there were two items, the last two items. So first of all, throughout the tool, there was additional revision, and some of the quality indicators, the criteria and the guidelines for rating them in reliable ways were revised. And the last two items, an item that focuses on family-school partnerships and monitoring children's progress, have been expanded with additional indicators. There is also like a summary, like interview sheet where users can have all the questions in a user-friendly way so that they can conduct their interview. So an interview schedule is available for them, and overall, like we've revised the guidelines and the scoring instructions in ways that are more user-friendly, and people can then link them to the item pages and find easily the guidelines for just rating the items that they observe.
Okay, great. Now that's all the questions that I have. So again, I want to give a huge thank you to you, Dr. Soukakou, and also to Dr. Tracy West for being here with us today. As always, if you are looking for additional information or you would like to order the ICP, feel free to visit us at brookspublishing.com/ICP. I would like to thank you for attending our webinar. Once the webinar is complete, you will be asked to answer a survey on your experience. This information helps us to improve our future webinars. Also, today's webinar has been recorded. You will receive the recording in a link that will be emailed to you tomorrow. So thank you again for your participation, and we look forward to you joining more of our webinars in the future. Thank you.